Will we ever see Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira?
Possibility. I mean, Rogan is pushing me right now to try to make that fight. It's just, guys, Jon Jones is a whole nother. I consider Jon Jones the greatest combat fighter of all time. Jon Jones is the nastiest dude ever in the history. And Jon's got a dark side to him, man. He shoots guns. Jon Jones is a killer.
The big money fight is Alex and Jon Jones at the White House. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Catch weight. Make it 225. You don't have to be for a title. Make it the bad month upper edition. You know?
The moment that Freedom 250 card dropped, the entire MMA world exploded with one burning question. Where the hell is Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira? This wasn't just casual curiosity. This was genuine shock rippling through every corner of the fight community. Fans had been salivating over this matchup for months, especially after Pereira made that audacious leap to heavyweight. The White House setting screams historic spectacle, the kind of event that defines careers and creates legendary moments. And yet, the lineal heavyweight champion and the potential triple champion were nowhere to be found together on this card. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Dana White is catching serious heat right now, and honestly, you can see exactly why fans are furious.
Against Alex Pereira? No, shut the fuck up. Jon Jones, Alex Pereira fight will probably be the biggest fight in human history. You got the greatest of all time in Jon Jones, and arguably the most destructive striker that's ever competed.
Yeah.
No one's like that guy. All the time.
Why not fight against Pereira, a guy who's the same age as you, and we walk around the same exact size? Right now, I had to eat a big breakfast because I'm getting underneath 235. Pereira walks around at like 240, and he has magnificent accolades. Business-wise, it makes more sense. Fight the, I'm gonna call him this, fight the nobody that may be more dangerous, or fight the guy with all the accolades who's incredibly dangerous, but it actually will affect your legacy. Where when you look back and it's like, Jon just beat Alex Pereira, it's bigger. It's just much bigger. And anybody who can't understand that logic simply doesn't want to.
All right, Sunday morning, leaving Las Vegas. Freedom 250 was announced last night at the White House, going down in June. So we're going to talk about this. I honestly thought we were going to see Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira, more than likely in the main event. Of course, that's not the main event. That is Justin Gaethje taking on Ilia Topuria for the undisputed lightweight championship of the world, which is a great fight, which is the fight that should happen because obviously meritocracy, and they've got an interim champion. There was people saying that maybe Charles Oliveira.
But here's where this gets absolutely wild. While everyone's losing their minds over what's not happening, they're completely missing what actually is happening. Alex Pereira challenging for a third weight class title against Cyril Gane isn't just some consolation prize. This is literally unprecedented territory. No one has done what Pereira is attempting to do. The man went from kickboxing to dominating the UFC, conquered middleweight, destroyed light heavyweight, and now he's gunning for heavyweight gold. And get this, some people are arguing this matchup is actually better than Jones versus Pereira from a pure entertainment standpoint. Think about it. Jones would probably take Pereira down within the first 2 rounds and grind out a wrestling-heavy decision. That's not exactly the explosive fireworks you want for a White House card that's going to be watched by millions of casual fans.
Per se, but certainly a TKO, so that wouldn't have made sense anyway. Now, I did think Jon Jones, the greatest of all time according to a lot of people, and yeah, probably is, obviously many asterisks to his name. I thought he'd be fighting Alex Pereira because Alex Pereira vacated the belt. Yuri versus Carlos Ulberg is going down in Miami. That's a great fight. I'm very happy for Yuri Prochazka and for Carlos Ulberg. He's a class.
Now listen to this breakdown because it changes everything. Remember what Jones did to Cyril Gane? He methodically dominated a guy who Tom Aspinall, one of the most dangerous heavyweights on the planet, couldn't put away. That tells you exactly what would happen to Pereira. Jones would shoot for takedowns early and often, probably securing top control and keeping Alex on his back for 15 to 25 minutes. Technically brilliant? Absolutely. Must-see television for casual viewers. Not exactly. But Gane versus Pereira? That's a guaranteed kickboxing war in 4-ounce gloves with 2 elite strikers who can end the fight with a single shot. Dana White isn't stupid. He knows that for a card with this much prestige and international attention, you need guaranteed action that translates to any audience. not just hardcore MMA nerds who appreciate grappling exchanges.
Fighting for the interim strap against Alex Pereira, which is very impressive because Alex Pereira will be the first person to ever compete for 3 different titles, 3 different weight classes, which is just, it is insane. I mean, the success that this guy's had is phenomenal. And we're going to talk about this matchup. So Cyril Gane versus Gane, pardon me. Cyril Gane versus, oh, I've got to adjust my contact lens because sometimes everything goes a bit blurry and I can't see shit. There we go. Yeah, so Cyril Gane versus Alex Pereira, 2 great strikers, and I'll say this, it's a better fight than Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira.
Here's the kicker about Pereira's power. It's absolutely supernatural and translates across every weight class he's touched. The man has knocked people unconscious at middleweight, light heavyweight, and now he's facing significantly bigger opponents at heavyweight who outweigh him by 20 to 30 pounds. And he's still cracking them. That's not normal. That's once-in-a-generation power that defies logic and physics. When you combine that otherworldly striking ability with Gane's unique agility and footwork, which is insane for a heavyweight, you get a stylistic dream matchup that fight analysts are going to dissect for years. Both guys are exceptional strikers, but in completely different ways. Gane's this technical, elusive giant who moves like he's fighting at welterweight, while Pereira is this calculated destroyer who can shut your lights out with perfect timing and technique.
Explain why, right? Of course, magnitude, star power, legendary names, resumes. Yeah, that's what Jon Jones brings. Also what Alex Pereira brings, to be fair. But I've said this a million times, so this won't be a shock. There would have been a really good chance that Jon Jones would have just taken down Alex Pereira. Pardon me, it's early. I've only had a few hours sleep. But yeah, Jones would have probably taken down Pereira. Wouldn't have been easy, right? Magomed Ankalaev has tried to do that. Other people have tried to do that. Jan Blachowicz tried to do that. But this is Jon Jones we're talking.
But wait, it gets even more complicated when you factor in the Tom Aspinall situation. This man is sitting there as interim champion, absolutely demolishing everyone put in front of him, and he can't get a shot at the undisputed belt. Why? Because Jones was playing games with his availability for the Stipe Miocic fight. Think about how frustrating that is. You win the interim title, you're clearly the best heavyweight not named Jones, and you're stuck in limbo because the champion is being difficult about when and who he wants to fight. This isn't just about Dana White making arbitrary matchmaking decisions. This is about navigating a heavyweight division where the biggest names have the most complicated demands and the most unpredictable availability.
Tom Aspinall couldn't take down Cyril Gane, but Jon could, right? So that's just something to think about. Jon would have probably taken Pereira down and finished him by a ground and pound, you know, just choked him out, whatever, and it could have been a quick performance. Now, the matchup we have now for the interim heavyweight strap, Pereira versus Cyril Gane, this is completely different.
And here's something nobody's talking about, the business side that's destroying these dream matchups before they even get announced. Eddie Hearn's involvement with Tom Aspinall's management situation reveals how messy this actually gets behind the scenes. Fighter availability isn't just about health or willingness to fight. It's about complex negotiations, monetary demands, and contractual disputes that fans never see. Sometimes fights don't happen not because Dana White hates the matchup, but because managers are pushing too hard for specific terms or money that doesn't align with the UFC's budget for that particular card. Aspinall had fights canceled twice against Volkov due to contractual disagreements. Twice. That's not bad luck. That's the harsh reality of professional combat sports, where even the most talented fighters can be sidelined for reasons that have nothing to do with their abilities.
Be a kickboxing match in 4-ounce gloves, and then when you look at the matchup, on one side you've got Pereira, who's got insane power, who was the middleweight champion, the light heavyweight champion, and now potentially heavyweight champion. Again, legendary stuff. The power will travel. He had knockout power at 185, 205 he will, and at heavyweight he's still going to pack the same amount of punch. Granted, you're fighting bigger people, you're striking bigger people with bigger necks and bigger jaws and just generally heavy, so they'll be able to absorb the blows better, but he's still going to crack a punch, man.
Now get this, despite all the drama and the exclusions everyone's complaining about, This Freedom 250 card is still absolutely stacked from top to bottom. Diego Lopez versus Steve Garcia is going to be pure violence. Benoit Saint Denis versus Kyle Daukaus has serious potential to steal the show. These aren't throwaway fights to fill time. These are carefully selected matchups featuring rising stars and established names who consistently deliver action. The patriotic energy around this event is electric, and the UFC has deliberately built a card that represents American fighting spirit across multiple weight classes and fighting styles. While Jones versus Pereira would have been massive, the organization still managed to create a must-watch event that showcases the depth of talent in the promotion.
That is slick as Cyril Gane, although I'm not saying he's not slick, I'm not saying he's not smooth, I'm not saying he hasn't got great combinations, because he does. He's a brilliant world-class kickboxer. But on the other side, you've got Cyril Gane, who's very, very light on the feet, very bouncy, very floaty, kind of glides around the octagon, and
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Conor McGregor's take on why he doesn't need to be on this specific card reveals something crucial about how the UFC actually operates. McGregor makes a legitimate point that his star power is so immense. He can headline literally any card on any random Tuesday night and turn it into an instant blockbuster that does huge pay-per-view numbers. This suggests that some exclusions from big cards aren't snubs at all, but strategic business decisions. Dana White might be deploying his biggest assets strategically, spreading them across multiple events to maximize overall impact rather than concentrating everything on one already hyped card that would succeed regardless of who's on it.
for the heavyweight division. I don't think either guy is going to go for a takedown. If it does go down to the ground, it'll be after one of them gets knocked.
So here's the real question that nobody wants to face. Is Jon Jones actually retired at this point? Because his pattern of behavior suggests something deeper is happening. The man has been the pound-for-pound king for over a decade. He's accomplished everything possible in this sport, and he's dealing with legal issues, personal problems, and the natural decline that comes with being in your late 30s in a sport that destroys your body. Maybe the exclusion from this Freedom 250 card isn't Dana White being vindictive or making poor matchmaking decisions. Maybe Jones simply doesn't want to fight anymore, and everyone's directing their anger at the wrong person. The hatred being thrown at Dana White might be completely misdirected when the real issue is that the greatest fighter of all time is quietly walking away from the sport without making it official. What do you think? Is Jones done for good? Or is this just another negotiating tactic in his long history of complicated relationships with the UFC? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that like button if this breakdown opened your eyes to what's really happening behind the scenes. Subscribe for more inside analysis of the fights and drama you won't get anywhere else. And hit that notification bell because the heavyweight division is about to get even crazier. I'll see you in the next one.
Shut up with the announcements, please. I'm trying to do a YouTube video like an absolute bellend walking through an airport and everyone's looking. It's full of UFC fans because UFC 326.
But hold up, before you rush to the comments section, there's another layer to this Jones situation that's absolutely mind-blowing when you really dig into it. The UFC has been quietly building contingency plans for months, maybe even years, knowing that Jones might pull this disappearing act. Think about how they've been positioning Tom Aspinall, how they've been hyping up the heavyweight division without Jones, and how they've been creating these massive storylines that don't require the greatest of all time to be present. This isn't panic mode. This is calculated preparation for a post-Jones era that might have already begun without anyone officially announcing it.
Yeah, if it goes to the ground, it's because one of them knocks each other down and then they go to finish it. So this is going to be a fantastic striking affair in the co-main event at the White House at Freedom 250. Right, so give me your thoughts on that one. Who do you think wins this fight? It seems like I'm always going against Alex Pereira, but I kind of think it might be Cyril Gane. I think Cyril Gane might get it, right? But regardless, whether it's Cyril or it's Alex, whoever wins this will be the interim heavyweight champion of the world. And this is a crazy situation for Tom Aspinall because the script has been...
And here's what's really wild about Alex Pereira's heavyweight move that everyone's overlooking. The man isn't just jumping up one weight class. He's essentially jumping up 2 full divisions from his natural walking weight. Most middleweights who move to light heavyweight struggle with the power difference. Most light heavyweights who attempt heavyweight get absolutely demolished by the size and strength differential. Pereira is doing both jumps successfully while maintaining his knockout power and technical precision. That's not just impressive, that's historically unprecedented in modern MMA. When you look at fighters who have tried similar moves, they usually lose their speed, their timing gets thrown off, or they can't generate the same devastating power against bigger opponents.
The interim champion and couldn't get a shot at the undisputed. Hello, she's looking at me with a smirk. Couldn't get a shot at the undisputed with Jon Jones because he wasn't playing games. He had a fight booked against Stipe Miocic, but then Jones certainly was playing games. You know, after the Curtis Blades matchup, we didn't know what he was doing. Now we don't know what's happening with Tom, right? I assume their eyes are going to be good to go very, very soon, right? Otherwise, Eddie Hearn isn't going to sign a fighter that can't fight, right? So I'm assuming any day now they're going to come out, start negotiating with the UFC and say, listen, he's good to go. He's fine. He's healed.
But here's where the Cyril Gane matchup becomes absolutely fascinating from a technical standpoint. Gane has this incredibly unique problem that most heavyweights don't face. He's too technical for his own good sometimes. Against guys like Francis Ngannou, his technical superiority should have been a massive advantage. But Francis's raw power and wrestling improvements neutralized Gane's footwork and striking technique. Now he's facing Pereira, who combines technical striking mastery with that supernatural knockout power we talked about. This creates this incredible puzzle where both fighters have to solve problems they've never encountered before. Gane has never faced someone who moves like a middleweight but hits like a heavyweight truck, and Pereira has never dealt with someone who has heavyweight power but moves with the agility of a much smaller fighter.
Thought a rematch with Cyril Gane would have been the immediate matchup, but if he beats Alex Pereira, it certainly will be the immediate matchup. But this time it'll be for an interim belt versus an undisputed belt, which makes the fight even bigger. As I said on another video the other day, it all depends on these contractual negotiations. Eddie Hearn came out and was kind of shitting on Tom's contract and saying that he doesn't get paid what he should get paid. If Eddie's going to try and change that contract, and you know, that is what a good manager does, to be fair, and you want the best management team on your side. You certainly don't want an amateur, you don't want a chump, you don't want someone that doesn't know what they're doing. But if he tries to push the goalposts far too...
Now check this out. The timing of this Freedom 250 card reveals something crucial about how Dana White actually operates that most fans completely miss. This isn't just about putting together fights for one spectacular evening. This is about positioning the UFC for the next 2 to 3 years of heavyweight dominance. If Pereira wins, you've got the most marketable champion in UFC history holding 3 belts simultaneously. If Gane wins, you've got a technical heavyweight champion who can face anyone in the division with compelling storylines. Either outcome sets up massive fights for the rest of 2024 and beyond. Meanwhile, Jones sitting on the sidelines actually helps this narrative because it removes the complicated politics and focuses attention on active, hungry fighters who want to compete regularly.
I'm going to agree to that, and there might be some kind of stalling, and we might have Tom Aspinall sitting on the sidelines for a while. I hope that doesn't happen, and I hope if he is able to renegotiate, I hope he gets a killer deal, because he deserves it, right? Tom's a freak in nature, he's an incredible athlete, but he's got to come back, and it looks like he's going to be fighting Alex Pereira or Cyril Gane.
And should he win the fight, then we figure out what's going on with Tom Aspinall, and it could be him versus Aspinall.
Now, other fights on the card. Steve Garcia versus Diego Lopez. I forgot to mention that one on my 326 preview yesterday. That's an insane fight.
And speaking of hungry fighters, let's talk about what Tom Aspinall is probably thinking right now watching all this unfold. The man has been training like an absolute maniac, staying ready for any opportunity, and he's witnessing the heavyweight title picture reshape itself around him. But here's the thing that makes Aspinall dangerous to everyone in this equation. He's been studying both Pereira and Gane extensively, knowing he's likely to face whoever wins this fight. His wrestling is significantly better than Gane's, his striking is more explosive than people realize, and his ground game could be the perfect counter to Pereira's striking-heavy approach. The winner of Gane versus Pereira might be celebrating their victory while walking directly into an even more dangerous challenge.
Jean Silva, and what else did he do? Oh, I mean, listen, he's just must-see TV. And then on the other side, Steve Garcia hasn't got the same kind of brand value as Diego Lopez, but holy shit, man, he's on, I think, an 8-fight win streak, and they're all stoppages, most of them in the first round. I think one of them got to the second round, and you gotta love Steve Garcia. He's a nasty, nasty guy. So that'll be the first fight on the card. I didn't see this one coming. Bo Nickel versus Kyle Dorcas. I didn't expect that one, but it'll be a good fight. Dorcas, he's on a 2-fight win streak. Bo Nickel, of course.
But let's get real about something that's driving hardcore fans absolutely insane: the casual fan impact on these matchmaking decisions. Dana White knows that millions of people who never watch MMA will tune in for this White House card because of the novelty and the patriotic angle. Those viewers don't understand grappling exchanges, they don't appreciate technical ground control, and they definitely don't want to watch Jon Jones hold someone down for 25 minutes, no matter how skillfully he does it. They want knockouts, they want standing exchanges, and they want fights that look like action movies. Pereira versus Gane delivers that guaranteed spectacle, while Jones versus Pereira carried the risk of being a grappling-heavy snooze fest for anyone who doesn't understand the technical aspects of mixed martial arts.
Chandler. How about this for Michael Chandler? Fair play, right? Obviously, there was talk of Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler competing on that card. Dana said, nah, we ain't interested in that anymore. But it turns out it was the Conor McGregor side. Now, Conor came out and he was doing an interview with Chael Sonnen, and he brought up some good points. He said, listen, it's going to be a sellout with my name involved regardless. It's going to do blockbuster numbers.
You know, like a double sale thing. That's the White House is going to hit no matter what.
And he's absolutely right. When Conor comes back, it's going to be insane, right? And that's just the facts of the matter. So they don't need to put him on the White House card. And he said, they don't put me on 300, they'll put me on...
Here's another angle that's absolutely crucial to understand the international implications of these matchmaking decisions. Alex Pereira represents massive Brazilian viewership and Latin American markets that are incredibly valuable to the UFC's global expansion. Ciryl Gane brings in French audiences and European interest that translates to significant international revenue. Jon Jones, despite his greatness, has been involved in so many controversies that his international marketability has serious limitations. From a business perspective, Pereira versus Gane opens up multiple international markets simultaneously while avoiding the baggage that comes with Jones's complicated public image. This isn't just about American pay-per-view numbers. This is about building a global brand that works in every major market worldwide.
We'll never see him again. If it is, it's kind of an unceremonious way to go out. I remember when I retired, I wasn't happy with the way that it ended because I wanted to retire in the octagon after a fight, win or lose. I wanted to thank the crowd. That's why I was going to take one more fight. I was actually in negotiations to fight Rashad Evans at the O2 Arena in London because I've romanticized this idea of thanking the crowd and all this type of stuff and putting the gloves down and going through that whole thing. And my manager, Audio Tara, was like, Mike, you're romanticizing this in your mind for this big moment, but what you're doing is you're putting your...
And here's something that'll blow your mind about the deeper strategy behind excluding certain fighters from this card. The UFC has been quietly building what insiders are calling franchise fighters, athletes who can headline major cards independently without needing to rely on aging legends or problematic stars. Pereira is the perfect example of this strategy. The man can sell pay-per-views based purely on his knockout highlight reel and his incredible story of conquering multiple weight classes. He doesn't need Jon Jones to create interest. He doesn't need controversial storylines to generate buzz. And he doesn't come with the legal or personal drama that complicates marketing campaigns. This represents a fundamental shift in how the UFC approaches star building and long-term business planning.
Because obviously I had one eye and I was starting to have problems with the one eye. That's why I've got to adjust my contact lenses because I'm going bloody blind. And he was absolutely right. And for Jon Jones to go out like this after all these negotiations, these back and forths, and just kind of embroiled in what he is, like, it is a bit of a shame. Also a shame that apparently he needs hip surgery. He was talking about, you know, being riddled with arthritis, got caught on camera. Dana mentioned that again at the press conference.
Is it fair to say then Jon Jones is retired and this is the end of his...
Now let's dive into what makes this particular heavyweight matchup so unpredictable from a betting and analysis standpoint. Traditional heavyweight analysis focuses on wrestling, cage control, and cardio management over 5 rounds. But both Pereira and Gane exist outside those traditional heavyweight archetypes. Gane's cardio is exceptional for the weight class, but he's never faced someone who can end the fight with a single counter, strike regardless of how the fight has been going. Pereira's knockout power is proven across multiple divisions, but he's never dealt with someone who can maintain distance and technical striking for extended periods while carrying legitimate heavyweight power in return. This creates this incredible scenario where normal fight predictions become almost impossible because both fighters bring elements that heavyweight analysis traditionally doesn't account for. But here's what's really driving the controversy around this card: fan expectations versus business reality. Hardcore MMA fans want to see the absolute best fighting the absolute best, regardless of entertainment value or mainstream appeal. They want Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall for the undisputed title. They want Alex Pereira versus the winner immediately afterward, and they want every matchup to represent pure competitive merit. But the UFC isn't just a sport. It's an entertainment business that has to balance competitive integrity with mainstream appeal, international marketability, and long-term strategic planning. Sometimes those priorities conflict, and when they do, the business considerations usually win because they determine whether the sport continues to grow or starts to decline. And check this out, there's been this massive shift in how fighters approach career management that's completely changing the landscape of these super fights. Older generation fighters like Jon Jones came up in an era where you fought whoever the UFC put in front of you, whenever they wanted you to fight, for whatever money they offered. Modern fighters, especially established champions, have way more leverage and way more strategic thinking about when and how they compete. This means that dream matchups become incredibly complicated to arrange, because everyone involved has specific demands about timing, location, opponent, and compensation. The days of Dana White simply announcing fights and expecting everyone to fall in line are basically over for top-tier talent. Here's something absolutely fascinating about Alex Pereira's rapid rise that reveals why he's become so central to the UFC's future plans. The man has headlined multiple pay-per-view cards in less than 2 years, consistently delivered exciting finishes, and built a legitimate global fanbase without speaking fluent English or relying on trash talk and manufactured drama. That's incredibly rare in modern combat sports where personality and controversy often matter more than fighting ability. Pereira's success proves that pure violence and technical skill can still create massive stars, which gives the UFC a blueprint for developing future champions who don't need to become social media personalities or engage in bitter feuds to generate interest. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room that nobody wants to address directly. What happens to the heavyweight division if Jon Jones never comes back? Because right now, everyone's operating under the assumption that he'll eventually return for one more big payday or one final legacy fight. But what if he doesn't? What if this extended absence becomes permanent retirement without any official announcement? The UFC would suddenly have a heavyweight division built around Aspinall, Pereira, Gane, and rising contenders like Curtis Blades and Sergey Pavlovich. That's actually not a bad situation. It's a division full of active, exciting fighters who want to compete regularly and create compelling storylines. Maybe the post-Jones heavyweight era would be more entertaining than the current situation where everything revolves around an inactive champion. And here's the final piece of this puzzle that ties everything together. The Freedom 250 card represents a massive test of whether the UFC can create blockbuster events without relying on their biggest established stars. If this card succeeds financially and generates huge viewership numbers, it proves that the organization has successfully built enough depth and star power to thrive in a post-Jones, post-McGregor era. If it fails to meet expectations, it might force them to reconsider their approach to star development and matchmaking priorities. Either way, this event becomes a crucial measuring stick for the future direction of the entire promotion. So when you're watching Pereira versus Gane, you're not just watching a heavyweight title fight. You're watching the UFC test whether their new generation of stars can carry the same weight as the legends who built the sport. That makes every moment of this fight historically significant, regardless of who wins or how it ends.